Do you just want two? It's a very, very long song. Okay, just press the pass. And just sing it solo twice. Good morning, everybody. Please turn to hymn number 188. Hymn 188, The Love of God, first and last stanza. The love of God is greater far than tongues of men can ever tell. It goes beyond the highest star, it reaches to the lowest hell. The guilty pair bowed down with care, the Son to win his erring child, is reconciled and pardon from his sin. O love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, each forevermore endure the saints and angels' song. Contemplating the ocean filled, as the stars perfect made, for every song, the perfect will, and every man described by trade. Like the love of God above, perfect rain, the ocean dry, from endless flow, contain the whole, no stretch from sky to sky. The love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, it shall forevermore endure, the song of angels and song. Okay, I want to welcome for those of you who are here this morning, and that song is rarely sung. One time I got on a van in the country of Malawi, and I was taking a van from the capital, Lilongwe, to Lake Malawi, okay? And they played Christian music on the van. Of course, I didn't know it was Christian because it was sung in, that language of Rwanda. And then I heard this song, and I barely recognized it was Christian because the Africans put a note above the melody, right? And I listened to it. I said, "Oh, you mean all these songs are Christian?" Except I never knew it because it was in Rwandan. Okay. So at this point, you guys are dismissed to go to your next class. Okay, so very close to finishing the one segment in chapter 11. So today we might end early there, but we'll have you turn to Revelations chapter 11. Okay. And because we covered this so slowly, we tend to forget what we covered. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go down a timeline of the things we covered. Okay. Chapter 11. So basically, we were looking at the city of Jerusalem, and I'm going to just do a quick review. So the review I'll ask people in the back row what happens. So in chapter 11, it starts off with, God will send two witnesses into the future to preach the gospel for about 2.5 years. Okay, and I'm going to ask Amy the first question. So, who are the two prophets that God will send back in the future? From the back will send into the future. Do you know any of the two? Moses and Gibson. Who's the other one?
Elijah.
Okay. And the fact that the world sees these two prophets of the past preached today, many are converted to accept Christ as their Savior. And then what happens is in verse 7, out of the bottomless pit. Oh, yeah, and these two perform miracles, okay? So I actually believe that Moses would do, and I mentioned this in my message, that Moses did 10 miracles back in Exodus, and I believe that Moses would do all 10 miracles again. So the world knows the 10 miracles, they get to see the 10 miracles, okay? And Elijah would do his miracles. And I think I mentioned one of the weird miracles, okay? So one of the miracles he did was the miracle of the frog, okay? So the question is, how is the frog so scary? And what I don't, there's two things that we don't know about the frogs of the future, but I believe, number one, the frogs could be poisonous, okay? So if you touch it, you get, when I was in Central America, there was the poison dart frog, we didn't touch it. Or there's another description in the book of Revelation, we're not going to go into we're not studying that section, is something demonic about the frogs. Okay, so that's really weird. Another one I mentioned was the flies. So does anyone remember what I mentioned about why the flies are so bad? Okay, so the flies are so bad because, I think I mentioned the other day, flies in San Francisco are just friendly flies. They just bump into you, or they crawl in the poop, and then they crawl in your food. That's about it. But when you go to other countries, so I haven't experienced the biting fly in Africa, the tsetse fly, which has diseases, but I did experience the biting fly in Greenland. So I'm sure when the flies come, they're biting flies, okay? So they would perform the 10 miracles, and then in verse number 7, something happens. And then when they were finished their testimony, the beast ascends out of hell, to make war against them, and shall overcome them and shall kill them. Okay? So let's see how well you guys have the memory on this one. So, Henry, they get killed. These two prophets get killed, and then what happens? How many days are the body's not buried? Do you remember that one?
10 days.
Okay, and how about you, Gibson?
30 days.
Okay, so basically 4 days. Okay, they're not allowed to rot for 4 days, and it's shown on TV, the internet, YouTube, everything. Everyone sees that they've been dead for 4 days. And then, Brendan, what happens after 4 days?
Come back alive?
Yeah, they come back alive. So, you can tell it feels like years that I covered this material. Okay, so they come back alive, and therefore, when they come back alive, a lot of people believe again. Okay, so you have tons of people believing because they remember what Moses did, what Elijah did, and then they die, and all the bad people come out and celebrate for 4 years. I was going to say 4 years, 4 days. And I think God will remember which bad people celebrated for 4 days. Okay, so a lot of times you can't say, well, God is unfair. God punished innocent people. So I think God says, okay, I'm not going to punish innocent people, but the ones that celebrated the death of Moses and the ones that celebrated the death of Elijah definitely are the enemy, right? And the ones that didn't celebrate, God will spare. And then all of a sudden, of course, the ones that didn't celebrate, they are in despair and they're unhappy. It's just like seeing Jesus. I'm sure that when Jesus was crucified, a lot of his followers, thousands, he fed thousands, they were all unhappy. And they were unhappy for 3 days until Jesus came back. And in my mind, he preached for 40 days. Okay. Likewise, I'm sure for 4 days, people are really, they said, well, we got on the wrong horse. Okay. The one that killed them has got to be stronger than Moses and Elijah. Okay. And who's the one that killed him in verse 7? And when they shall finish their testimony, the beast sends out of hell. They warred against the prophet and kills the 2 prophets. So during the 4 days, lots of people say, oh, yeah, the devil is stronger, so now we will worship the devil for 4 days. Well, once these 2 come back, I'm sure God can't say, well, you can't switch back to Moses and Elijah. I already found out who are the true followers, okay? Not the fair weather followers or whoever's winning, I'll jump on that horse. So then we fast forward to verse. So then I think they never died. Okay. But after they never die, I want to see, does anyone remember? Okay, I'll ask Fatty. After they never died, then what happens? What did he say?
A great earthquake?
Oh. So what happens to these 2 guys? Yeah, how did they go up to heaven?
They get raised to heaven?
Yeah, they ascend into heaven in the form of Moses and Elijah. So I was in Jordan 2 weeks ago, and I had the choice of, I had a 10-hour layover, okay? And at the airport, you can either sleep on the hard floor for 10 hours, or you can go on a tour and go to Mount Nebo where Moses ascended into heaven. And so I just, and then, so I said, okay, how much does it cost to go to Mount Nebo? And the cost. So Moses was not able to go into the promised land. You see the promised land from Mount Nebo, and it costs $150 to go to Mount Nebo and back. So I said, okay, well, let me Google image what Mount Nebo looks like, see where Moses ascended. And what I saw was parking lots and buses and gift shops and church and crowds. I said, that doesn't feel very Moses-like experience. If I can see a parking lot for here for less than $150. So I said, it depends on how hot it is. If it's super hot, I'm not going to even go out of the airport. I'll just sleep on the hard floor for 10 hours. And what was really amazing is Air Jordan pulled me out and says, oh, you know what? Unfortunately, we forced you into a layover of 10 hours. Would you like to have a free hotel and bed and shower and air conditioning and big screen TV? Or would you like to go to Mount Nebo? So I'm curious, how many here would go for the hotel, shower, bed, air conditioning, big screen TV? Okay, how many would go for the religious experience of Moses' ascension at Mount Nebo? Okay, good, very good. Okay, for $150. Okay, if it was $40, I think I'd go to the mountain, but $150 is kind of steep. So these and Moses and Elijah ascended in the chariots of fire. I think Melvin spoke on that last week. So these 2, they ascend into heaven. And you know what? Because it took me so long to speak on this topic, we probably forgot that they ascended into heaven. And I'm sure many believed after they ascended into heaven, and then, as Fanny says, the Biggie earthquake. So let's look at the slideshow. Can someone turn that? And someone turn off the light in the back? Thank you. So while we're turning to that, I'm going to have you turn, well, we'll have you turn later. So this is the last time I think I'm going to show you the slide of Jerusalem. And I actually have a pointer. Okay. So I have 15 minutes to cover this. So a large section of Jerusalem gets killed, and those are the ones who most likely celebrated that the two prophets were killed. Okay, and if I have to make a guess, I would say it's the Muslim quarter right here. So I keep on saying this for the last year or so, that the Christian quarter is important because it has the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay, and for some reason, 6 old line denominations believe that this is where Jesus is buried, this is where Jesus was crucified, and and what I'm going to do is try to prove to you it's wrong. Okay, but I want you to also notice this. In the Muslim section, there's the Church of Flagellation, which is where Jesus was tied to a post and whipped. Okay, and after that, they said he carried the cross from here to the Via Dolorosa, which is the way of sorrow, to here. So I actually walked it. It's uphill. Okay. So today I'm gonna and you would say, how can 6 major denominations be wrong? The Catholics, the Orthodox, the Coptics, the Syriacs, the Armenians, the Ethiopians. And my answer is, when you visit these holy sites, always take it with a grain of salt whether or not it's true. Okay, so in my mind, I visited anyway because it was part of the tour, and no one's going to take me to the other one. Okay, so the thing I want to notice is this. See this name, Sultan Suleiman? Okay, so what happened was this area used to be Christian, and then the Muslims came in under the ruler of Sultan Suleiman. And Suleiman, when he took over all of the Middle East, he had a choice. The choice was to kill everybody who didn't want to be a Muslim or let everyone be. So Suleiman was actually a wise ruler. He didn't kill everybody. So just remember Sultan Suleiman Road. And this is Herod's Gate. So this is what I believe. I believe that Jesus was whipped here, and he didn't walk here and get crucified there, nor was he buried there. I think what happened was back then, if you had a cemetery, you don't put your cemetery in the middle of the city. You put it outside of the city. Okay. Otherwise, this area is considered unclean. Okay. God had these high standards that death and anything dead cannot be touched. Therefore, if it was here, this whole area, if the cemetery is here, the whole area is unclean. So I believe that he was whipped here and he walked out the Herod's Gate. Okay. So let's look at that slide of the aerial slide of Jerusalem. Okay, so here we are. So you all remember we have some landmarks. The landmark is the Dome of the Rock. This is the Muslim section. And can we blow it up more? Oh, you don't have to blow it up more. Remember the Suleiman Road right here? Okay, the Suleiman Road. And what we're going to do is, does anyone see a cemetery here? Okay, I don't. Okay, so no one sees a cemetery here, but let's go to the next slide. Oh, well, the next slide of the map. Yeah. Let's see. There. Okay, so where are we? So the way to figure out where we are is we orient ourselves to the Dome of the Rock. We know it's here. And remember this Suleiman's Road right here. And remember Herod's Gate. Okay, now here's the deep thought. Does anyone see this cemetery right there? Okay, and let's blow it up to see if we can see the cemetery. Okay, so can you see? Don't blow. We won't show the other one yet. Okay, so you see this, right? You see cemetery. So it'd be logical. He walks out Herod's Gate, and he gets crucified at a cemetery. But how do we know this is the cemetery, not that? You see the cemetery here, and there's also cemeteries. Okay, Gethsemane. Okay, Remember Gethsemane, they put a cemetery here. Why did the Catholics do it? That's really dumb. They put a cemetery here because they don't want Jesus entering into the main gate. Again, the first time was he entered the cemetery, he entered Jerusalem on a donkey. Second time, he will enter as on a white stallion. Okay, so remember this: Suleiman, Herod's Gate, and some cemetery. So why do we think it's that cemetery? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so remember Suleiman's Road, Herod's Gate, the cemetery. Okay, so I didn't even know Zedekiah. I don't even know who Zedekiah is, but Zedekiah has a cave. Okay, and can anyone tell me what these are? Okay, Sean, do you know what these straight lines are? Okay, how about you, Lolita? What are these straight lines? So whenever I go to a third world country, they don't print maps of third world countries like I did of Syria, Damascus. So the cheapest way to get a map is you go to Google Map and you look at the aerial and you print it out. And then, of course, I get lost all the time. They don't have signs on the road, but I always look at the landmarks, okay? So does anyone want to make a guess what these straight things are? Okay, so the answer is they are buses. Okay, so you will use that as your landmark. So say I want to find where Jesus is crucified. I will go to Herod's Gate, walk around here, get lost, but I'll say, oh yeah, I'm on the Suleiman Road, and maybe if I see buses, oh, I'm close. Okay, so I look for parking lots, buses, weird temples, things like that. And let's look at the next slide. So here you are minding your own business, trying to find, and then do you see what? So let's see if you know this here. So Judy, what are these? Buses. Okay, a clue, a bus. So let's have you turn to John. John 19:17. Okay. So a lot of times I would look for these. I went to the Christian site in Damascus to see where Paul was blinded, where he was healed. One day I'll show you slides of that. Of course, I get lost, but those Google Maps are really good. You know, it used to be I would have to buy Lonely Planet maps, but they're not very good maps. They're just straight lines. Okay, so John chapter 19, verse 17 says, and Jesus, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of the skull, which is called in Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him and two others with him on either side, one and Jesus in the midst. Okay, Jesus in the middle. Okay, so in Hebrew, I will ask Shang, what does Golgotha mean? Okay. Andrea? What? What did she say?
Skull.
Yeah, it means skull. Okay, so right in the verse, it says right in the verse, and he went forth to a place which they call the skull, which in Hebrew is Golgotha. Okay, so this is our chance. Okay, so does anyone see a skull here? Okay, so when I went to Church of the Holy Sepulchre, I didn't see no skull. But that looks like a skull, right? The two eye orbit sockets and the nose socket and the mouth, that looks like the skull. And I'm amazed over 2,000 years. And, I'm amazed they haven't made this into a tourist attraction either. What have they made it? They made it, see that tombstone on the top? They made it a graveyard here, and they made it a parking lot for buses. Okay? So, let's go to the next slide. Next slide, I think, yes, same thing, the skull face, to me, it looks like a skull, and it hasn't changed. So While I was in Cyprus, I met a pastor, and he's from Norway, and he used to live in Jerusalem. Okay, and we were talking about how the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the wrong location, and he said yes. He actually went and he looked for the skull. So he said, yes, this is the skull. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Okay, and he says in his mind, because he lived in Jerusalem, that this is a garden. And does anyone remember, how do we know it was a garden? Does anyone remember how we knew that Jesus was buried in a tomb that looked like a garden? Okay, so I'm going to really make you. So, Elaine, do you remember why we know it's a garden?
I believe I was not there, so I don't know.
Okay. I mean, according to the Bible.
Why the skull?
Okay, so Ivy, do you know why we think he was buried in a garden?
There's trees surrounding it.
Okay, so in the Bible it said this: Mary showed up, and Mary said to the gardener, "Can you please tell me where Jesus is?" And then Jesus says, "Mary, it's me." So why would she think that he was a gardener? Because it was in a garden. Okay, so this looked like a garden. I can't say for sure this is it, but I can say this. Let's look at the map on the top. Okay, so this is where the cemetery is, right? The cemetery is pretty big. This is the bus parking lot, and right next to it is the garden. Okay, so I would have to say, if I had to pick something, I would say cemetery, skull, the skull is right here next to the bus, the garden, and I can tell you it's not down there. Okay, so I'm going to just end off with that. I will start covering more of the book of Revelations. Let's bow for a word of prayer. Okay, dear God, we want to thank you. The knowledge of the Bible is really important. One day when we do visit the holy sites in the Bible, we want to confirm that it actually fits with the description of the Bible. If it doesn't, it's not biblical. So we want to thank you that you gave us the Bible. We can use it as our guide. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, great. So we are done. And can someone turn on the light and someone turn the blinds? And see, that house is for sale if anyone wants to buy it. It's a bad location. There's no way to get a car out